Everyone talks about how you have to believe it's yours, that you have to live in the end, imagine it real, and it will come. But what no one tells you is why the very thing you wanted the most started slipping through your fingers just when you felt closest to having it. It felt real. You imagined it every night. You stayed loyal to the scene. But then they pulled away. Cold, distant, silent, and you were left wondering if it was something you did wrong. But what if I told you it wasn't about your technique or the scene or the script you repeated? What if I told you that they didn't pull away because of what you did, but because of who you believed yourself to be underneath it all? And that belief, that invisible, subtle state you unconsciously lived in, that's what truly manifested. Not the words, not the visual, the state. And once you get this, not only will you stop repeating the same story, but you'll finally understand how to shift into a version of you where this doesn't happen again. It's one of the most frustrating things to go through. You did everything right. You visualized, affirmed, stayed in the end, maybe even felt signs from the universe. And for a moment, it seemed like things were lining up perfectly. But then out of nowhere, it all started falling apart. You got less attention. The energy fell off. Something shifted. And then they pulled away. You were left questioning if you broke your manifestation or if you were being punished somehow. But the truth is so much deeper and so much more freeing. You never broke anything. You never got it wrong. What happened is the unconscious state you were in, the one hiding underneath all the affirmations and visualizations, became visible in your reality. And what most people don't realize is that manifestation doesn't respond to what you want, it responds to what you are. And what you are is a mix of your dominant feelings, beliefs, and assumptions about life, yourself, and others. When you desperately wanted the connection to work, it may have been fueled by a fear of being alone, by a belief that happiness only comes when someone else finally sees your worth. And it's not your fault. Those beliefs were probably shaped by your past. But unless they change, the same patterns keep playing out. So when things fall apart, it isn't the universe being cruel, it's actually being precise. It's showing you what still needs healing, what you're still holding on to, what parts of your identity are still rooted in fear or lack. That moment of everything going wrong isn't a sign of failure. It's a mirror. And once you stop blaming yourself and start looking at what it's showing you, that's when your power returns. That's when you can begin to shift from reacting to recreating, from hoping they stay to being someone no longer afraid of them leaving. That's how you change everything, from the root, not the surface. Most people are trying to change their lives by changing their thoughts. But thought is only the surface level. What truly creates is the state. And the state is made of your feelings, your identity, and your subconscious beliefs. All the things you're not even aware are shaping how you show up, what you expect, and what you unconsciously allow. You could be visualizing a perfect relationship every night. But if your dominant state is I always get hurt in the end, or people always leave, then those images won't have the power to override your inner assumptions. This is why people feel stuck, like they're doing everything and still getting nowhere. Because the words and images they use are coming from the same old state. They're trying to decorate a prison cell instead of walking out of it. And this is where real transformation begins, when you stop trying to change the outside and start becoming aware of the state you're in when you're not trying. When your mind is quiet, when you're alone, when no one is around to distract you. That's the real state you're manifesting from. And this state runs deeper than logic. You can't just talk yourself into a new one with positive thinking. You have to feel into it, accept it, and choose again. The shift happens when you decide to stop living as the version of you who expects loss and start living as the version who expects love. Not because someone gave it to you, but because you are it. Because you see yourself differently. You walk differently. You carry a new inner tone, a new energy, a new story. And that story doesn't beg, doesn't chase, doesn't panic when someone pulls away, because it doesn't see itself as someone who can be left. The old version of you might have lived in survival, but the new version knows there's nothing to survive anymore. Wanting something deeply doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. But when that want turns into need, when you feel like you can't be okay without it, then you've stepped into a state that actually pushes it away. Needing is lack. And the moment you start needing someone to show up, respond, commit, or prove something to you, your energy shifts. It becomes tight, desperate, unstable. And even if you say the right affirmations or visualize the ideal scenes, your deeper vibration is saying, I'm not whole until this happens. That state of lack is exactly what keeps the thing you want at a distance. And here's the paradox that messes with people. The moment you finally let go of the need, the moment you stop chasing, the moment you shift into fullness again, that's when things begin to come back around. Not because you stopped wanting, but because you stopped vibrating in the story of I don't have. You stopped being the version of yourself who thinks, if they don't come back, I'll fall apart. And you became the version who knows, I'm whole with or without. This isn't about pretending you don't care or suppressing your emotions. It's about recognizing that the energy of I need this to be okay is rooted in an old identity that believes you're incomplete. That identity is not who you really are. It's who you learned to be, often from wounds, heartbreak, or being made to feel like you had to earn love. But the truth is, love is never earned. It's accepted. And the more you return to the state of being someone who simply expects love, not needs it, not chases it, but lives from the knowing that it's already within, that's when the resistance melts. That shift is magnetic. It draws things to you without effort. Not because you manipulated energy, but because you finally stepped into the truth. You don't need anyone to choose you in order to feel chosen. You don't need to be seen to feel worthy. When you stop needing, you stop sending out the signal of absence. And when absence disappears from your inner world, it disappears from your outer world too. That's how powerful you are. Your state creates the world you live in, even if you haven't realized it until now. Before you can shift anything, you have to see it clearly. You can't change what you're unwilling to face. And most people don't realize they've been living in a state that quietly expects things to go wrong. It might show up in how you brace for disappointment, how you get anxious when things feel too good, or how you secretly doubt that someone will stick around even when they show interest. These reactions aren't random. They're coming from a state, a version of you that still sees love as something unsafe, inconsistent, or conditional. So if you want to break the pattern, you have to start noticing the story you're telling yourself about who you are and how life works. Ask yourself, who have I been being? Not just on the surface, but deep down, when no one's watching. Have you been being the version who doubts, questions, and prepares for the worst? Or the version who knows their presence is a gift, who trusts that what's meant for them is already theirs? You don't need to judge or shame yourself for the old state. You just need to become conscious of it. That's what starts the shift. Once you see it, you can say, that's not who I want to be anymore. And every moment you notice yourself slipping back into that state, you get to pause and choose again. This is where real freedom begins. Not in fixing everything outside of you, but in changing who's showing up inside of you. The beautiful part is, once you begin recognizing these patterns, you'll notice that the triggers that used to throw you into fear or lack start to lose their power. You'll feel the shift in your body. You'll start to expect different outcomes without needing to force anything. And the more often you return to this awareness, the more naturally you start living as the version of you who doesn't even worry about being abandoned or ignored anymore, because that version doesn't see themselves as someone who could be. That version lives in a state of wholeness, and wholeness is magnetic. It doesn't chase, it attracts. It doesn't plead, it rests. And from that place, life starts to mirror you in the most beautiful ways. Stepping into a new state isn't about forcing yourself to think happy thoughts or trying to be positive all the time. It's about becoming a different version of yourself from the inside out. It's about choosing, moment by moment, to no longer live as the version of you who waits to be chosen, waits to be seen, waits to be good enough. The version who keeps reliving old wounds. You don't have to earn your way into the new state. You just have to decide to stop identifying with the one that suffers. And the way you do that is simple, but not always easy. You start acting from the place of already being whole. You start speaking to yourself differently. You wake up in the morning and before you even look at your phone, you ask, who am I going to be today? And you don't wait for someone else to validate you first. You become your own source. You catch the old narrative when it whispers things like they're not texting back, maybe something's wrong with me. And instead of following that spiral, you pause and shift. You say, that's not my story anymore. I don't live there now. You start moving through your day like someone who already feels chosen. You hold yourself differently. You walk with a quiet confidence, not because you're pretending, but because you've decided that your energy is no longer up for negotiation. You don't wait for someone to treat you like you matter, you already do. You stop making how others show up the reason you believe or don't believe in your worth. And you begin to live in the assumption that you are safe, loved, and supported. It's not about being perfect. You'll still have moments where you feel the old fears rise up. But those moments aren't proof that you've failed. They're proof that you're healing, that you're stepping into new territory. And the more you stay loyal to this new identity, even when it's uncomfortable, the more natural it becomes. It goes from being something you're trying to do to something you just are. You start to notice your reality shifting. The way people talk to you, the way opportunities flow in, the way things feel easier. Because the world isn't responding to what you want. It's responding to who you are being. And when you are being someone who knows they cannot be left behind, someone who doesn't chase because they are already complete, then life stops giving you reasons to doubt and starts giving you proof of your new truth. This is the real work, not forcing anything, but becoming someone who no longer needs to. When someone pulls away and it triggers your deepest fears, the most powerful thing you can do is stop making it about them and start asking what version of you was just revealed. Because if you keep trying to fix it on the outside, by reaching out, by proving your worth, by begging the universe for a sign, you'll keep looping through the same pattern again and again. But when you realize that their pulling away was a mirror showing you the state you've been in all along, that's when everything changes. You can't fake a new state. You can't trick the universe. You have to become it. You have to stop telling yourself stories that begin with what if they don't come back and start telling stories that begin with I'm not waiting anymore. You stop being available for the version of yourself that suffers and you start becoming the one who chooses peace over panic, presence over performance, and truth over the temptation to chase. This is how you never repeat the same pattern again. By living in a new identity so fully that the old version of you has no room to exist anymore. Not because you hated that version, but because you outgrew it. Because you decided that you deserve to live in a reality where you are not waiting to be picked, where your nervous system isn't hijacked every time someone doesn't reply, where your day isn't ruined because someone pulled away. You become someone who no longer even entertains the story of abandonment, because now you see it for what it really was, a symptom of a state that said, I am not enough on my own. And now you've shifted. Now you've returned to truth. And the truth is, you were never abandoned, you just forgot your power. You were never rejected, you just aligned with the wrong version of yourself. And now you remember. And when you remember, you rise. You rise into a reality that reflects your wholeness. You rise into love that feels easy, peaceful, and certain, not because someone finally gave it to you, but because you gave it to yourself first. This is how the pattern breaks. This is how the story changes. Not by chasing love on the outside, but by choosing to become the version of you who doesn't need to anymore. If this spoke to something deep in you, if it helped you see your old story a little clearer or reminded you of the power you forgot you had, drop a comment and just say I'm not waiting anymore. Let that be your moment of claiming the new state, right here, right now. I will meet you with another golden nugget. Happy manifesting.